welcome to Mystical Awakenings with Deb and Arjay.
Hi, everybody.
So good to see you all. We're looking forward, of course, to many things coming up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're kind of coming to the close of summer here in Michigan anyways. And right around the equinox will be Michigan UFO contact. And to say we're excited is an understatement.
Right.
But, you know, I wish we would have discovered our guest tonight sooner because, you know, we would love to have him there at some point.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We are in for a really good night filled with amazing information. So I hope that you all can stick around. Feel free if you have questions to put them up. Do you want to go ahead and introduce?
Sure. And before we start, I want to thank Michael Carter for letting us know about this gentleman.
Yes.
So, is that all the way down? Okay. Okay, Samuel Chong is certified court interpreter and Chinese translator. Samuel Chong was instrumental in arranging for the Chinese publication of Michel Desmarquet's book, or Desmarquet's book, sorry. The Uba Prophecy, which has been a bestseller in both China and Taiwan, a rare phenomenon. He visited the author, Michel Desmarquet, in 2016 and 2018 and had a close working relationship with him. Now, before I go on, the Uba is also a name of a planet and the people that live there. Okay, so we're going to get into that later. And he had a close working relationship with him. He also translated the book 334% Lies, the Revelation of H.M. B. Stuhl, an autobiography of the High Master of the Chair of a secret society that was started in Germany. Today he dedicates his efforts in promoting the message in these books in order to give people hope and to help promote a better world through his scholarship. In his scholarship, he graduated from the University of Berkeley with a bachelor's degree in economics in California. The book details the author's unique experience being invited to visit an extraterrestrial planet that has an advanced civilization, and he was informed of the history of the Earth, ancient civilizations with ET visits, facts about reincarnation and afterlife, the construction and the purposes of the Great Pyramid, the statues on Easter Island, the Bermuda Triangle, aura and human energy fields, and the stories in the Bible versus historical facts, how they parted the sea of reeds, and the true origin of Jesus Christ from their perspective, etc. The author, Michel Desmarquet, passed away in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Samuel Chong.
Welcome, Samuel. So nice to have you here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
It's our pleasure.
Absolutely. I know that we have probably enough questions for a day or two, but we're going to try to keep it to 54 minutes. That's literally
It's going to be impossible, so it always is.
So I'm going to ask you right now if you will be willing to come back with us at some point, because one night won't cover it.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Sam, before the show started, I asked if you were born in China, right? And raised
Yes.
there for a while and came over here, and you said like 1983. I'm curious to let our audience know, because I'm curious myself, what was it like growing up there, and what is the attitude about talking about extraterrestrials and UFOs there? Is it the same here, or is it different?
Well, growing up in China is quite different because we had limited resources in terms of the media because everything was controlled by the government, and everything's still controlled by the government.
Right.
Back in the 80s and 90s, the government was quite open towards the studies of the UFOs or the paranormal phenomena and the Qigongs and the human potentials. And so we got a lot of information from the outside regarding the researches done by American other scientists from other countries about the visits of the ETs. But in the 2000s and thereafter, the government was kind of very reluctant to promote anything that's to them considered superstitious. superstitious.
Hmm.
So now they crack down on anything that they don't think is scientifically based. So ufology is actually
Mm.
one of the things that they consider not very scientific. So nowadays, people don't have much freedom to receive such information anymore. But in the past, when I was growing up, it was quite open, and we got a lot of information from the outside.
Yeah. So that brings us to the fact that how did you get into it? Did you have some personal experiences as a young man growing up?
I was a very curious person when I was born, after I was born, and I was curious about how the world functions.
Right.
And so after reading the information and stories about the ET visits, I was thinking if the ETs could come and visit us, they must have advanced technologies and knowledge, and
Right.
we could just learn from them and to progress at a much faster pace. So that's my thinking back then. So after I came to the US, I was in my subconscious mind intentionally looking for books written by ET contactees. But the stories have to have facts that can be verified. And so I was looking for books like that, and I found this one book. Back then it was called Abduction to the Ninth Planet. And then there were a lot of specific verifiable facts that really shocked me. So I believed everything written in the book to be true, and the author's personal experience was considered to be authentic.
Mhm. And so, uh, if I remember correctly, you kind of stumbled upon this book by accident, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did a search on Amazon and I found it by accident.
Okay. And you found it obviously, like most people, very, very knowledgeable, very interesting. But uh, in the book, that he mentioned that uh, there were some things that they would not allow him to talk about, right?
That's right.
And that's what got you curious and said, "Hey, I need to know more," right?
Yes. I was very curious.
And so you ended up going over to now he was he was French, right?
French Australian.
Australian, yeah. But he ended up moving to Vietnam. I
Yeah.
take it, yeah. And you, through your diligence, uh, found him. And was he happy to see you at first?
No, he wasn't. He was very annoyed at my visit.
He thought he was hiding out in the middle of nowhere, right? But, so,
Right.
but you guys became very good friends, and so did he start revealing to you some of the things that were left out?
What made him change his attitude towards me was he found me to be able to speak Chinese, and he signed a contract with a Chinese publisher who paid him $2,000 to get a book. For the copyright fee, so that they can publish a book in China. But
Okay.
he never heard from the publisher, so he wanted me to follow up with them, and I did. And then the publisher decided not to have the book published because of the fear of censorship.
Right.
So Michel Desmarquet, he asked me to find a different publisher. And then after I found a different publisher in China and also another publisher in Taiwan, he asked me to visit him again so that he could tell me that one thing he wasn't allowed to write in the book in person.
Very nice. So,
Oh, interesting. Well, I just want to ask while we're still on the book, um, the ninth planet.
Yes.
Can you explain what that means? Abduction to the ninth planet?
It is a planet that has very high degree of evolution, because according to them, when the creator created everything, there are 9 different categories of planets in the universe. We are currently living on category 1 planet, the lowest category, and they, the Thebans, live on category 9 planet, the highest category. So they are just like our mentors or professors in a college. We are just like elementary school students learning the basics. So they have been guiding us throughout history. And a lot of their activities were actually recorded in the stories in the Bible. especially the Old Testament. So they are highly advanced beings who are really compassionate and loving people, according to the author.
Mhm.
And they can join and rejoin the creator or the pure spirit at their will. So it's just like we are learning the basic lessons and they're guiding us.
Right, right. So if we're category 1, that would really explain to me anyways why we're going through this transformation evolution in the age of Aquarius. And we need a lot of help. So if all of these other planets are quite a bit higher than we are, I would assume that is why we are having more and more visitation. More
Yes.
people are having contact. And what we are finding in our research is that the contact seems to be more informational than ever and more loving than ever. Did you find that as well?
Now, Samuel, Deb, I'm going to ask you this too. Was our planet always category 1, but in the past, way in the past, we were more spiritual? Was it considered maybe a category 2 or something higher at one time? And it got that way back to a 1?
Well, Earth has always been a category 1 planet.
Okay.
But the people who came to Earth originally came from different planets of
Right.
different categories. For example, the blacks and the yellows originally came from category 1 planet. So were the people from the people who are the ancestors of the Polynesians or the Caucasians. But the Hebrews originally came from a category 3 planet, according to the author.
Okay.
So that's why they were the chosen people by God.
Okay. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It is interesting. Okay. I mean, because I've been the last 3 years I've been doing a lot of research on the Anunnaki and all the past and trying to find out our past and what went on, and there's all kinds of different stories about it. But obviously, we were visited more often back then by people that were trying to help us advance. So that's kind of obvious. You can see the jumps in history, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Now, you talk about Jesus a lot, and Jesus, it's interesting, you talked about Jesus, when he was born, up to 30, really couldn't perform miracles. So what I get that you said one of the Theubans kind of jumped into him. Now I call that a walk-in. So all of a sudden you know some person, but I mean usually that has to happen when somebody. It doesn't have to happen when somebody passes away all the time, but a lot of times when people pass away or have a near-death experience, someone steps in and takes over, and it makes sense because it talks about his life from 30 on. You don't know much about his life from birth to then. Now there is stories that he went to India. He learned a lot of things, a lot of healing process, things like that. But it kind of, when he was 30, that's when all the miracles started happening.
Yeah. So this book actually, this book connects all the dots of what happens to Jesus and Christ. According to this book, Jesus was actually indeed born out of Virgin Mary by the embryo implanted by the ETs,
Right.
so that people would realize that someone extraordinary was going to be born this way.
Yeah.
And also the prophecies were to be fulfilled. But because when the astral body goes into the embryo, the astral body has to pass through what the ancient Nagas would call the river of oblivion, forgetting all the knowledge to perform miracles. So this is why the young Jesus, even though he was highly spiritual, having a very profound conversation with the teachers of the temple, he couldn't perform miracles. And he traveled to India, went through China, and died in Japan. And so this is why there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And people can still look it up on the internet and to find evidence of it. What happened to Christ was that the Thebans believe that people in the past, as well as people nowadays, they tend to be highly skeptical. So, in order for Christ's teachings to be believed, they had to send someone who could perform miracles. So, this is why they molded or created a body of Jesus that resembled the body that of Jesus who went to China and died in Japan.
Right.
And then they had one of their own people walking inside of that body made by them, so that he would be able to remember the knowledge to perform miracles. So this is why suddenly Christ was able to perform miracles and after he began preaching. And this is also probably why when he met his mother, he didn't call his mother mother, he called his mother woman.
Right.
Um, and because of the special relationship between mother and the son, and there's not a single language in the world in which a son would call his mother a woman. That just doesn't happen. So he was crucified on the cross and then resurrected 3 days after, just to show people at that time that there's life after death and there's reincarnation. But for some reason, the concept of reincarnation was later removed by the Catholic Church Council meetings from the Bible. And this book specifically named the 4 Catholic Church Council meetings that intentionally distorted the original ancient scriptures. And that includes the Council of Nicaea and other councils.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard that he headed east, and possibly his other family, because Mary Magdalene and his kids went west for protection. But yeah, I heard he did go east, and it was interesting. I have not heard that one when he passed away in Japan, but I know there is something there that says that was where he passed away at. So interesting. Let's get into this book a little bit, and let's get into Michel. He claims that he was visited, right?
Yeah.
And he was taken for 8 or 9 days to
9 days.
9 days to their planet. Let's elaborate on that. To me, that's very interesting. I want to talk about that.
That's a long time to be off planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't know why, but in 1987, he woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. And then he also automatically, just without any individual thinking or motions, he wrote a note to his wife saying that he will be gone for 10 days. And there's absolutely no need to worry about him. And then he walked outside of his house. He was lifted up into the mid of the air, where he saw a very beautiful, tall, compassionate ET who was blonde and very beautiful and female looking, and who told him that they were going to begin a journey together for about 9 days or so. And then they went through what we would call a parallel universe. So they used that as a hiding place so that his neighbors wouldn't be able to see them or the UFO craft.
Right.
And then they began their journey traveling at a few times faster than speed of light to deep space, and then used teleportation to immediately arrive at a different location in deep space. And then from that point, they again traveled at a few times faster than speed of light to their destination, the planet Thiuba, which is also pronounced as Jehovah in French, which is very similar to the word Jehovah in the Bible.
Oh,
and indeed, there's a connection over there.
Yeah. So, I'm one of these geeks. I like to know, if I were to look out in the sky, where would I look for this planet? Do you know?
Well, we really cannot see the planet from Earth because even though it's in our Milky Way galaxy, it's so far from us. When the author was on their planet, he was only able to see our sun. He wasn't able to see Earth. And the sun was only like a small dot in the sky to him.
So, if it would be towards the Orion constellation or towards, what do you think? I'm curious.
I wasn't able to figure out the exact location or the
Right.
direction, but probably I would say similar to Orion or that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And now, where was he when this happened? In
He
Australia?
was in Cairns, Australia,
Okay.
Queensland, Cairns, Queensland, Australia, and when he approached the planet, like as he was getting closer and closer, he saw like a golden mist surrounding the planet. And this is also why he wanted to name the book or title the book The Golden Planet, because everything looks so beautiful and so perfect. It's just like a paradise to him.
Wow. I can only, I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
it sounds beautiful. My most memorable missing time was when I um, did see it was shaped as a pyramid, but it was bright gold, most beautiful gold you would ever see. So now I'm wondering if there's a connection with them.
Yeah.
Interesting. So thank you for that information. And I find it so fascinating because all of this happened to him in 1987. And when I think about some of the things that we research now, that was very advanced. Some of the information that he was given was really quite advanced for that time period. Why why have people not really grabbed this information and learned from it?
It's probably because people were not ready and the information was too far advanced for the people at that time. Because they talked about the ET bases on the far side of the moon. They talked about life on Mars, like 1.35 million years ago. It talks about, especially the stories in the Bible, how we should be spiritual but not religious. That really goes against the doctrines of the Catholic Church.
Right.
For another reason, he was a landscaper, like a farmer in Australia, who didn't know how to use technology. So he didn't really know how to promote the book more effectively than it would have been had another person wrote a book. So he had a hard time getting the book published as a nonfiction because everyone, like every publisher he contacted, wanted to publish the book as a science fiction. No one believed everything in the book.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, good for him for not allowing that. Because
Well, I think in China, that's the only way you could get it published, right? It was
Yeah.
science fiction, yeah.
Yeah, in
So-
China, it's published as a science fiction.
As we know, if we go back to Star Trek in the 60s, what did they have? They had a little flip phone. They were talking to each other. We have those now. I mean, the things that they call science fiction became real. So a lot of things. So, I mean,
right. Yeah, and you did mention that a lot of, he mentions often in the book about parallel universes. And I find that really interesting. I know he talks about missing time, abductions, things like that, and people going missing.
Yes.
That, many of us didn't even realize that was a thing in the 1980s and 90s. So
Exactly.
to have this information was remarkable.
Yes. Now people know about the works of David Paulides, his Missing 411 series of books. People know more about the Bermuda Triangle. People know more about the Philadelphia experiment. But back then, people didn't know, didn't have much information. And Michel Desmarquet actually went inside of the parallel universe and actually saw what happened inside of it. He saw people wearing medieval clothes, people who got stuck there for centuries and thousands of years. He even saw like cavemen in the parallel universe trying to attack him and his ET friend. So, and he was explained that it's just a natural phenomenon in which there are portals or orbs in our atmosphere at certain locations on Earth that just suck people, planes or ships inside when they got too close. And once they're inside of parallel universe, everything like time stops and people inside don't feel any hunger, thirst, or pain. So this actually corroborates with the studies done by David Paulides, because he found a lot of cases in which the corpse um, were so strange, in which it seemed that the person who um, vanished and then reappeared, and the corpse doesn't seem to be very natural, because the person walked to his or her bones, that he or she didn't feel any pain, uh, like wherever he or she had gone to. So this really kind of verifies and proves where the people van, vanish,
Yeah.
or after they just got stuck into the parallel universe.
Now you have a very unique explanation of ghost, and I want you to tell her and my audience that it makes perfect sense that about our energy and that how some of it stays behind. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so we have our physical body, which is being used as a tool to develop our spirituality. But we also have our astral body, which is composed of electrons. And when we die, we give up our physical body. So our astral body leaves the physical body. And because the astral body is composed of electrons, 81% of electrons goes to our higher self after 3 days. So this is why Christ resurrected after 3 days. And this is why the Tibetans have a custom in which the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for 3 days.
Right.
So that's the 81% of electrons. So the remaining 19%,
This is interesting.
yes, goes to nature, remains in nature until they're recycled by nature, or when a person reincarnates again. So what we see ghosts are actually the remaining 19% of electrons of the astral body of the person who just passed. And because of the static forces, the electrons resemble the appearance of the person who just passed. And also because electrons have memories, they frequently haunt the places they loved or hated.
That's
Very interesting.
yeah, I love that
So-
explanation.
Boy, you've got my mind going. So if somebody passes after 3 days, they can literally show themselves as they were.
Yeah, they can, but they have certain memories too. You can communicate with that part of that higher self, that person. So you can communicate to ghosts, and a lot of people can do that.
Mhm. Well, I was born what I call a spiritual medium, and I've always had the ability of seeing, but I don't always see them clearly. Sometimes I see a silhouette. Sometimes they look exactly as they did, like the best part of their life. So now my mind's going crazy here. So you're saying this can happen with somebody who has recently passed. But what about a loved one that comes to me 20 years after losing their mother, and I clearly see their mother? What do you, even though it's not a physical seeing, I usually see it with my third eye.
It'd be their higher self, right?
Is that okay?
Yeah, it'd be their higher self. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be the higher self as well.
Yeah.
That's, give me some things to think about.
Now, are you able to talk about any of the things that he couldn't mention? I know you made a promise that you weren't going to bring him out, but is there anything you can tell us maybe a little bit?
Yeah, so this is why I wrote the article, which is titled "The Second Coming of Jesus Christ." So a lot of the things relate to the future, in which the Old Testament of the Bible has a lot of validity. And but the most important thing is how to prepare for the future. And as we know that the world is becoming increasingly divided, and what we need to do to help humankind so that the future can become a better future.
Absolutely.
And if people are interested, they can look up the article, and even though I promised them not to reveal it to anyone else, they didn't say that I couldn't write an article giving as many clues as possible or providing as many hints as possible.
Little tidbits, yeah.
Yes, that's what I did.
Yeah.
One hint would be after the author Michel Desmarquet came back from Cuba, someone gave him the Book of Enoch to read. And after reading the Book of Enoch, he found a lot of resemblance of what he personally witnessed and the descriptions in the Book of Enoch. He believed that Enoch was taken by the same group of ETs to their planet and then being instructed to write a book. So there's a Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
So similarly, he was instructed to write a book documenting what he personally witnessed and saw and experienced. And remember what happened to Enoch. He went away with God. And a few decades later, his great grandson Noah was told to build an ark. So you can imagine what's going to happen a few decades later, because he wrote a book. Michel Desmarquet wrote a book, and got it published in 1993. So we have to be ready.
Well, believe it or not, my father and my grandfather's name was Enoch. So they said when they're going to open the Bible up and they're going to come to the first name, and the first name they came to was Enoch. So obviously I did do a little study on him. Yeah, he did leave the planet. He was taken off. He was taken away. So that's interesting that he might have been there. Mm-hmm. So what do you think's going on, Samuel? Where are we headed?
I think the book reveals the real dangers on Earth, which is number one, money, number two, politicians, number three, journalists and drugs, number four, religions. So we really have to be warned of the real dangers and to act together in a concerted fashion against the tyrannies of the world.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, we, the poor people, we have very little to lose if we have a strike. But the rich and the wealthy and the financiers, they depend on slave labor to profit themselves. If we stop working for them, they would lose everything. So they have to cater to our wishes or demands. If there's a concerted action of a strike, for example, using nonviolent resistance. Nonviolent resistance is the key, just like what Gandhi did in India and what Dr. Martin Luther King preached.
Right.
And we have to really be mindful of that and to keep people informed, because knowledge is power. So we have to have the knowledge of what's really going on behind the scenes. People see the Republicans fighting against the Democrats, but according to my personal experience and information from my friends, both parties or the candidates of both parties are on the payroll of a specific group of people that runs everything behind the scenes for centuries.
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah, I've known that, and they all work for the same people. And that's what we really need to be concentrated on, the people that, are behind the scenes. And so it's there to divide us. That's one thing,
Yes.
And that is the biggest, their advantage of we're divided, because we will get nothing done.
This is why I think it's by no coincidence that I was able to translate the other book, 334 Lies, LIES, from German into English, because that book was actually written by the former highest degree chair of the Illuminati.
Okay.
And the motto of the Illuminati is divide and rule, or divide and conquer.
Right.
So the book tells how they run the world and how they divide us. So sometimes they cause racism in the US by supporting the KKK, and then at the same time fight against, or like supporting the organizations that fight against racism.
Right.
So they are behind both sides. So this is how they do things.
Right. It's like it's just a handful of families that run this place, or that have run this place. But I believe, I believe we're waking up. I believe there's also people that are going against these people, but they're not going down without a fight. But so they, but yeah, I believe that we are going to head in the right direction here, but it's going to take a lot to get there.
And do you feel, Samuel, that ETs are a little nervous about the state that we're in and they are trying to help us?
Well, they have been trying to help us throughout history. And they are really not nervous about our future because they're so highly advanced that they have different roles to play one way or another. For example, they were responsible for the destruction of the two cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, as recorded in the Old Testament of the Bible. But when we look at the real reasons for them doing that, we have to look at the Jewish or the Hebrew text. There was a story like a young girl who was trying to help the poor and the needy by giving the beggar food to eat. And then the citizens of the two cities, or one of the cities, punished her by torturing her almost to death. And she cried out to Lord or Jehovah. And so this is why, like, it's so descriptive and so graphic how evil the people were in the two cities. It's just like removing malignant tumors in your body to prevent them from spreading in other parts of your body. You have to take them out surgically. So this is what the ETs did to the two cities because they see that the people who were in contact with Sodom and Gomorrah were getting affected by them negatively. So they had to be ruthless by taking the two cities out. And also they helped Moses leading the Hebrews out of Egypt by parting the Sea of Reeds and also by giving manna to the Hebrews to eat.
Yeah.
So they have been helping us directly or indirectly for that matter.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've got to get it together. I mean, we've got to start, realizing that all of us have to be a part of this, and that there's really no difference between any of us. We are all humans, and we are headed in the same direction, and we all want the same things. And in order for us to evolve, it just takes love.
Yes.
It's love. So
this is actually what Christ was trying to teach us.
Right.
Spirituality and love.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. And many others.
Yes.
So, now, do you get a lot of, I don't know, flack's not a good word, but do you get a lot of opposition from religions? Yeah, I'm sure you do.
So do we.
Yeah, so do we. So,
especially the Christian religion, the fundamentalists and the evangelicals.
Yeah. And that's the tough sell right there, to try to convince the people. So that's why I admire people like you and Michael Carter, who see it in a more spiritual way, instead of a religious way. Yeah.
Great. Well, I mean, I feel that most religions, organized religions, have a lot of boundaries and a lot of judgment, hatred, where spirituality is nothing like that. It's very loving, very accepting. We expect people, to be kind people, things like that. So do you feel that ETs are trying to educate us?
They're trying to give us knowledge that we need by having, for example, Michel Desmarquet to write this book. And I think they're trying to invite us to mold our future, our own future.
Mhm.
So this way we can learn better than if they did everything for us. For example, if you are trying to teach your son a mathematical problem, if you are wise, you would tell him the principles and he would be able to solve the problem on his own. You wouldn't just give him the answer directly to him. He wouldn't be able to learn anything. Similarly, the ETs are trying to give us knowledge, the principles, so that um, we can learn on our own and struggle our way through. Another analogy would be a biologist saw like a cocoon in Mexico. And then as he sees the cocoon, the butterfly was trying to struggling and coming out from the cocoon. He, out of compassion, opened the cocoon up so that the butterfly would come out. It turns out that the butterfly comes out and but couldn't fly
Right.
because it has to go through the struggling process
Yeah.
on its own in order to be able to fly. So similarly, we people on Earth have to go through this kind of struggling process on our own in order to survive on Earth for the long term.
So do you feel as we get
Makes
more
sense.
spiritually advanced in our own structure, our own living, our own being, do you feel that they can present more stuff to us to help us along?
When we are ready, they're going to. And actually, in the past, they did appear and communicate with ancient civilizations on Earth, such
Mhm.
as Lemuria and Atlantis. They actually communicated directly with people on the Lemuria continent, the continent of the moon, um, and Atlantis for that matter. So they, when we are spiritually ready, they're going to show up and communicate. But right now, we are probably not ready yet. It's just similar to when we go to the zoo. If we see two groups of gorillas fighting against each other, we wouldn't step in and claim that we are trying to establish communications with them
Would that be wise? Yeah.
because they're not civilized enough to communicate directly with us.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah. I just need to know. I mean, I'm trying to, gather this information and trying to spread the information. We're trying to love as much as we can. I have to believe that we're heading in the right direction. Some people don't think that. Some people think that we're doomed, but I can't believe that. I that's not part of my makeup.
I think we have a bright future if we act together. This is why I've been devoting a lot of my time to spreading the messages in the book as well as Michael Carter's messages as well. I like
Right.
his messages too,
Right.
and hoping to wake people up. The more we wake up, the more we can change the future for the better. So, yeah, it really depends on how hard we try.
Yeah, and we're not getting any younger, so we just we're hoping that it kind of excels and goes a little faster than we hope.
But we know it will go exactly as it's
Planned,
supposed to.
yeah.
That's my belief, anyways. I'm a very mindful person, and I like to stay in the moment and believe that this moment is, we're learning, we're growing, we're loving. So, we have different sets of people, and we see a lot we put on the conference here in Michigan, and we're pretty involved in this phenomenon. Seems like there's the people who think that all ETs are just wonderful and godlike, and then you have the people who think that most of the ETs are like
And their own agenda.
a terrible reptilian who is out to destroy us. I feel like we need to meet in the middle, and I'm just wondering where, with all of your studies, and I see your heart, What are your feelings on this?
So let me start out by asking like if we know why we haven't gone back to the moon after 50 years. The fact is that, my personal belief is that we did go to the moon 50 years ago, but we were warned off from the moon. The reason is that they are afraid of us polluting the universe because we are not spiritually ready yet to explore the rest of the universe. So they sent like warnings to the astronauts saying that you are not to step onto the moon again ever until you are ready. So if they prevent us from exploring the rest of the universe, they if because we are not ready, they would do the same thing to other ETs who are not ready. So they would prevent other less advanced ETs from visiting us or polluting us. So I would say that even though there are ETs that are not as advanced or spiritually ready in the universe, they are being prevented from visiting us. The ones that can visit us must be spiritually more advanced than us, at least, so that they don't cause any harm to us. I know there are abduction experiences that are not that pleasant. And I would say that the military has certain technologies that can simulate holographically certain horrifying experiences, making the abductees believing that they were being abducted by ET. And I think that has to be like people have to be mindful of that.
Right.
Because through reverse engineering, and there are technologies that the civilians don't necessarily know about.
So we have a little protection plan, right? Hopefully. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that humans have a reason to fear off-planet beings?
No, we don't have any reason to fear, because if they really wanted to invade us or get us eliminated, they would have done that long time ago.
Right.
What we need to know is that there are technologies by the military industrial complex that may be harmful to people on Earth. And if you look up the technologies and information from whistleblowers, voice to God or voice to skull technologies, and that's a technology that they can use microwave energy to make people hear certain things that appear to be authentic, but actually they're just voices generated by machines.
Right.
And just look it up, and you can find a lot of information.
Oh yeah, I've been, I've listened to a lot of people that do that, and unfortunately, they get to the crafts before we do, and they use the technology for weapons. And yeah, I know they and they're also worried that this technology that they have is going to take away people's money. Free energy, health, everything. Our whole world would change for the better. Yeah, so. Well,
I feel, we're getting short on time. I know our producer just let us know 5 minutes, but I have so many questions, and now I can't remember what I was going to say. I don't know. Boy, there's so much information out there. There's a lot of information in this book. Where can people, if they're interested in what you have learned, do you have a website where they can go to connect with you?
Yeah, they can search my name on Facebook and find my personal profile, or they can just go to a website, chinasona.org/Thiuba with the capital letter T. But I would suggest and encourage people to read the book, because the book contains a vast amount of information that can be very practical and has a lot of can provide a lot of practical value to the readers, like tricks and helps or guidance, so that we can really improve our personal life as well. One of the key sentences in the Bible is, the kingdom of God is within you. So when we have life challenges or issues, we should look inside for answers, and not to follow specific organized religion or
Right.
the mainstream media for that matter.
Right. I agree
love it.
totally.
I love it.
Yeah, another person we could probably sit down and talk to for hours and hours and hours.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
So if people want to find the book, do you have that information on your website? Can they get it on Amazon? How do they go with this?
Yes, people can find the book on Amazon just by searching the title of the book, Theoba Prophecy. It's also in audible format on Audible. So if you prefer to listen to the book, it's very nicely narrated by a British person.
Very nice. Very nice.
well, we want to thank you so much for taking your time to be with us tonight and sharing your information. I hope we can do this again, and let's keep in touch. Okay.
And do you have a final message for the people, for the listeners?
Well, the final message is that the future is bright. It depends on our collective actions.
Right.
I love that.
Agree 100%.
Thank you, Samuel. And I know you have another show to do, so we're going to let you go. Everybody have a wonderful week. Find this book. It's amazing. And until we meet again, may all of your awakenings be mystical.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Sam.
Everybody. Good night,
Bye-bye.
Samuel.
Yep.